Hello, everybody. This is your host, Bonnie Squires. Welcome to Bonnie's Beat. We like to interview people who are doing important things in the community. And today, I'm lucky enough to have somebody whom I also count as a friend and a former client, Laura Princiotta, who is the CEO of SpArc Philadelphia and the Arc of Philadelphia. And she's an amazing CEO. She's done some remarkable things, and you'll learn all about it as we talk. Hi, Laura.
Hi, Bonnie. Thanks so much for having me.
The reason I wanted to interview Laura was because she's chairing the 75th anniversary of the Arc of Philadelphia. There are not too many nonprofits around 75 years later. Right, Laura?
That's right.
And especially a nonprofit that was started by some parents who were appalled that their children with disabilities were not allowed, this has gone back 75 years, were not allowed to attend public schools. They were barred. So Laura, you take it from there.
Yes. So the Arc of Philadelphia was formed by a group of parents who, like you said, Bonnie, whose children were not allowed in public school at that time. So they felt that it was very important to provide some valuable experiences and learning experiences for their children. So they formed the Arc of Philadelphia in 1948, and that was one of the first arcs in the country. Today, there are around 600 chapters across the country. But Philadelphia was one of the first. And many of those parents remained involved with the organization for many years after 1948. And they started something special, and their children benefited.
Now, your facility in the Hunting Park area,
yes,
it's open now, although it was closed for COVID. We won't even talk about the trials that COVID created for all the nonprofits, many of whom went out of business. Right, Laura?
Yes, there were over 50 nonprofits in our industry serving people with disabilities who closed over the past 3 years. And there have been a lot of surveys that are showing that there are additional programs that are going to close, and over 4,000 people with disabilities in Pennsylvania who were receiving services pre-COVID and now are not. So it's been devastating to the community of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities.
What Laura did, she had, because their facility had to be closed because of COVID, and because the state Office of Developmental, whatever it is, I don't even like to mention them, but because nobody could go near anybody, Laura had all classes and courses and events done virtually. So they didn't miss a beat at the Arc of Philadelphia and SpArc Philadelphia. However, because they weren't able to meet in person, the state ODP department decided they wouldn't pay them what they used to pay them for in person. And they cut back so severely. Did you lose some staff because of that, Laura?
Well, the reimbursement rates for our services have historically been lower than they needed to be. And before COVID, our industry was experiencing a staffing crisis because the reimbursement rates for services were inadequate. So like every other business in the United States, COVID exacerbated the problem, made things worse. And the industry today is, in a very difficult spot. But one of the things that we have that I'm very fortunate to have is staff members who are brilliant and creative and committed. And so what they did was they created a virtual program where there were classes on the computer 6 days a week. Many of our program participants live in very impoverished area in North Philadelphia. So we wrote grants to purchase technology, iPads that we distributed to folks, taught them how to use it. And for the time that the state mandated our closure, we provided at least some services for people, because this population is ignored and marginalized as it is. And people get lonely and they regress and they lose the skills that they had gained when they were here in person. So it was very important for us to keep that connection going. Not only did we provide virtual programming, but we called houses, we called folks every week who were unable or unwilling to participate in the virtual services. So we tried to keep that connection with all the people who we had been serving prior to COVID.
A lot of the people who are in programs at the SpArc of Philadelphia and SpArc Philadelphia don't have parents, or the parents gave up on them, or they only had a mother, or they were raised by a grandmother or an aunt or a neighbor. So that was another problem, right?
Yes, and so that goes back to our founding in 1948, because at that time, when a mom gave birth to a child with a disability, 99% of the time, the doctors recommended that the parents put that child into an institution. And then later in the 50s, when people started to come out of institutions in the late 50s, early 60s, there was nowhere for them to go and there was nothing for them to do. And that's one of the reasons why SpArc Services was created, so that people coming out of the institutions would have something meaningful and valuable to do during the day. But yes, it's true that, that fortunately that thinking changed over the years.
That's true. But you still have a number of clients that don't live with family.
Right.
Or the family has disappeared and left them wherever they left them, in group homes or whatever, right?
Yeah, I would say it's about 50-50 people who live with their families and people who do not.
But that's a big chunk,
It is.
because you've got how many hundreds of people do you service?
Well, pre-COVID, it was over 300 people every day. Now we're around 50% of that, actually. But we've been able to hire staff and we're bringing people back. And it's really wonderful to see folks that we haven't seen in 3 years who couldn't wait to get back here, and they're starting to return. So we're very hopeful that we'll be back to at least close to where we were pre-COVID pretty soon.
People may not understand that just because someone has an intellectual disability doesn't mean that that person doesn't want to have friends, doesn't want to socialize. And you took care of that a lot of the time, right?
Well, people are people, whether you have a disability or you don't have a disability, and we all have the same desires and wants and goals and aspirations and needs for a community of people. So part of what we do every day is provide those things for folks. And social interaction is very, very important for all of us, but especially for people who are often isolated at home. So we do make that a priority.
Have you been able to reinstitute your monthly dances yet?
We have not. We have not. We really, we're still masking. Very soon, I think we're going to make that optional and not mandatory, but it's a medically vulnerable population, and so we've been very careful.
Right. But the dances were amazing because music is something that they all respond to. And people may not realize intellectual disability covers such a lot of different disabilities. You had some people that were in wheelchairs, they couldn't speak. You had other people that were chatterboxes, that were very sociable and social. And there are boyfriends and girlfriends in this population, right?
Absolutely. Like I said, people are people. We're all the same. We have the same needs. And those dances were a wonderful way for people to socialize, get to meet new folks, and get to form those kinds of relationships.
And people from the community without disabilities were always invited to participate in all your programs, but especially with the dances.
Yes, and we had lots of volunteers from the local colleges and universities, and
right,
which speaks to really the core of our mission, which is not just to support the person with a disability, but also to educate the community to the value that people with disabilities can bring, and to the fact that we're all the same. People are people.
It's a shame that Derek Green, who has a son on the autism spectrum, who is really a wonderful advocate for the disability community, he just had to drop out of the mayoral race, the primary race, because of the incredible amount of money that's being spent by a couple of very wealthy candidates and some who are backed by PACs. I don't even want to talk about it because he was my guy.
Yeah, I was very disappointed to hear that. We had spoken on the phone recently a couple of times, and I was sad to hear that he felt that he needed to pull out of the race.
Now let's talk about your relationship with SAP and other corporations because of the work that you do for people on the autism spectrum.
Okay, so one of the things that we do here is help people who want to find a job in the community. We work with people who are very independent and people who are not very independent. So one of the programs that we created was Neurodiversity in the Workplace, is the name of it. And we find people who have autism employment in multinational corporations, SAP, Bank of America, New York Life, Dell. There's a long list of wonderful corporate partners of ours. We have a hiring program that is innovative in that the traditional interview process is not used. Instead, what we do is we have a task for potential employees to complete. Hiring managers can watch them complete these tasks and can speak to them in a very informal and more friendly way.
And they have to work as part of a team.
Yes.
That's part of the training you give them.
Yes, individually and as a team, yes, so that the managers can determine their skill level. And it's been very, very successful. We've had hundreds of people hired all over the country, and over 90% job retention rate over almost 8 years.
I want to focus on SAP because they were the first that you partnered with. And one of the reasons that SAP was eager to join this neurodiversity in the workplace was because the senior vice president had 2 kids that were on the autism spectrum. So he had already started, a neurodiversity program for SAP. I think in India, was that the first place?
Yes.
Laura, in
Yes.
India. Now, he was based in Texas, but he flew back and forth to the Newtown Square facility all the time. And the interesting thing was, Laura made sure that there were workers at SAP who would volunteer to be, the buddy of a newly hired person. They had so many volunteers from the workforce that they didn't have enough candidates to go around.
Yeah, that was a surprise to us.
Yes.
When SAP put that call out, the number of people who were interested in participating was shocking to us, honestly. But we found, as we've grown this program and grown the number of corporations that are our partners, everywhere there are many, many people who have some kind of connection to somebody who has autism.
Right.
And those numbers are increasing every day. So it was gratifying, very surprising and gratifying. And that program at SAP really helped launch a national understanding of the value that people with autism can bring to those kinds of positions, mostly technology-related positions, but we have hired people in human resources, we've hired people in engineering, we've hired people in communications. So it's really been expanding since SAP, but they were definitely our foundational partner and did an awful lot for us as far as good press for the program.
And not only that, but the people that they hire who go through your training program get paid the same as all the other employees at SAP or wherever they are.
Yeah, all these jobs are actual regular jobs, just like we would have. There are other companies that place people with autism in positions that are internship positions or kind of group employment. That's not what we do. This is an open position, a role that anybody else would fill, and they are treated the same and paid the same, and the expectations are the same.
And they socialize with the whole workforce. They eat in the employees' cafeteria. They go do social events with their colleagues. What people don't realize is that a lot of people with autism have very highly trained skills, as you said, in IT, and they're great with computers. And they have this capacity, which most of us don't have, to concentrate and focus solely on one area. And that's something that an IT company really values. But what we found in talking to parents of these people was that they would get a job because they had skills, but they couldn't keep the job because they weren't, the people who work with them didn't understand what some of the limitations were, the lighting, the noises, etc.
Yeah, one of the key parts of our program is manager training. Everyone with autism is different. Everybody doesn't have the same skill set, and it's just, the same as anybody else. But very often the managers would call us and they would say, hey, I need to discipline this person. I don't know how to talk to them. How do I talk to them? This person told me that, they were upset this day. I don't know how to handle that. Can you help? So one of the things that we did was develop this manager training. And that has gone a long way to holding up that over 90% job retention rate. So it's unusual that there would need to be, something done physically to an office to make sure that a person with autism was comfortable. But the manager training has been, I think, the key part of the job retention.
You've been invited to speak at a lot of places around the country to talk about the success of your neurodiversity in the workplace program.
Joe Riddle is the director of that program, and he has gone all over, everywhere, to speak about it.
And not just at conferences, but at major companies as well, to explain to inspire,
Yes.
not just to explain, but to inspire.
Yes. And also universities, MIT, MIT is a partner of ours. Harvard is a partner of ours. We've had hiring programs there, and so we're expanding. And look, is a population of very talented people out there who have, for one reason or another, not had the opportunity to work to their skill set. And that's starting to happen now. And it's a wonderful thing to see.
And the parents are ecstatic because they had almost given up hope that their young adult child would ever find a place in society. But you've helped them to do that. Let's talk about the arts and culture program that you run, which is also amazing.
So we do have a cultural arts program for people who might not be interested in the more traditional kind of work, but they are interested in the arts, the visual arts or the performing arts. And we have a very exciting and vibrant cultural arts program where we have artists and musicians and dance instructors who come in and provide classes for our program participants. We are having a fashion show at Cherry Street Pier on June 2nd at 5 o'clock. And I encourage everybody to come. We have created our own fabric, our own fashions, and folks are working with our dance teacher to learn how to walk the runway. It's going to be fantastic. The level of creativity that comes out of that program blows me away every day. They are amazingly talented folks, and they have shown their artwork all over the city. Actually, in other states as well, in New York and Massachusetts, and very, very talented program participants.
But your artists and your ceramicists, every year you used to have an art show, and people like State Representative Jim Roebuck, Councilman when he was in the council, Derek Green, these people would show up and they would buy and display the artwork that they purchased.
Yeah.
And some of the artwork is so fabulous that you have no idea who created it. It looks like something that was in a museum. And in fact, you have a staff person that used to take your arts people into a museum, explain the artwork on the wall, have them come back and create from their own imagination, what they saw or what they felt when they were looking at the paintings.
Yeah, that was a wonderful program. And we partnered with LaSalle University Art Museum and also the Philadelphia Museum of Art.
Right.
And we had shows in their community galleries. And we do continue to have shows across the greater Philadelphia area.
Now,
but this on June 2nd, Bonnie, is also our annual art exhibition. So it's a combination.
Combination.
Art exhibition and a fashion show. Because the fashions are art. It's wearable art. It's amazing.
And several times, Temple has a big facility just a few blocks away from SpArc and ARC's facility in North Philadelphia. And they had this beautiful new building with a long corridor with white walls. And I got them to let Laura's people mount the artwork. And it created an art gallery. It was supposed to be up for a week. They begged them, let it stay for a month, because the people who were walking through from the main building to their cafeteria enjoyed it so. And they did that for several years before COVID. Everything was before COVID, Laura.
I know.
Everything was before COVID. Oy vey. Anyway.
But we're still here, Bonnie. We're still here. That's the good news.
That is the good news. And maybe with a new governor, although Tom Wolf appreciated what you did. But I think Josh Shapiro will be even more appreciative of the work that you do for his citizens with disabilities.
We do depend on our legislators for support, also, an understanding of the financial needs in the industry. So many of them have been very good friends of ours over the years.
So we have, well, now with Joanna McClinton as the new Speaker of the House, she's from Philadelphia. So Joanna should be a main target of your mailings from now on. Absolutely.
Yeah, we're going to add her to the list, definitely.
Yes, absolutely. It's a shame that Jim Roebuck is not well. He's in a nursing home.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, we're all sorry to hear that, because he's a special kind of person. And he always was a big supporter of the Arc of Philadelphia.
He was. He came to all of our art exhibitions. He was always, we could always depend on him. I'm sorry, Bonnie.
But somebody else who's alive and kicking in the legislature, State Representative Joe Hohenstein, who himself has hearing difficulty. And he's always been an advocate for the disability community. People don't realize if you wear glasses, you're considered disabled. If you have a hearing aid, you're considered disabled. It's not just intellectual disability. There are all kinds of disabilities. And every one of us at one time or another has either broken a leg, broken an arm, and that's considered being disabled. If you're using a cane, if you've got a cast on. So, but who is the outstanding artist, would you say, from your clients now?
Oh, I don't think I could pick one, Bonnie. I don't think I could. There's so many of them who are extremely talented. And when we submit their artwork to a gallery for a show, we don't say this person has a disability. We'll say, here's the artwork of this amazing artist. And many times their art is chosen. So we don't necessarily have to say that this person has any kind of a disability.
I remember one of my favorite displays, you had a client, a program participant, who drew all the Phillies. He did portraits of all the Phillies players, and they were on display, and it was televised. A lot of good publicity about that.
Yeah, we have some really talented artists who come here.
Yes. And sometimes you can't tell. Oh, and then I don't know if he's still a part of the program, but you had someone, they were trying to figure out what to do with him because whatever.
Yeah. This was Stanley. Yeah. So Stanley, anything you put in his hand, he would throw. That's just what he did. And so what the staff did, the amazing creative staff, was they dressed him in like a jumpsuit. They spread newspaper all over the floor and then put a canvas in the middle and put little cups of paint in his hand. And he would just throw the cups of paint onto the canvas. What it looked like Jackson Pollock is what
it really did look like Jackson Pollock.
It did. But the great part of this is eventually Stanley was able to hold a paintbrush, and he painted using a paintbrush. So that was a big win for the staff, and their creativity made it happen.
Yeah, it was wonderful to watch him throw the paint.
Yeah.
But there are other artists in your program. You swear it came from the art museum.
Yeah.
The paintings that they do. And some of them are very abstract, but they also can express themselves when they're doing the artwork, which is very important.
Yes, for somebody who has not had their voice heard in their community, to show their voice through art is a creative way to do that for someone who doesn't have any other option.
How long have you been at SpArc and the Arc?
Well, I like to say it was when dinosaurs roamed the earth, but it's been 34 years I've been here.
34 years. Wow. But you're too young to retire.
Not really, but thank you.
Is there a replacement picked for you? Not that you could ever be replaced, but
Well, thank you, Bonnie. Yes, the board is working on that.
okay. I know who I would like to see, but it remains to be seen.
Well, it remains to be announced. Let's put it like that.
Oh, okay. All right. Anyway, so now you've got grandchildren that live elsewhere, right?
I do. I have two granddaughters who live outside Washington, D.C.
So you're going to be going back and forth there, I assume.
That's the plan. Yes.
And your husband is still retired.
Yes, he's been retired for about 3 years.
And was he a social worker or
He was.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yes.
A match made in heaven. What can I say? Although you were an English major, right?
I was secondary education English. Yes, but we were both social workers, and so there was a level of understanding there that was pretty special.
Absolutely. Well, I wanted to wish you well.
Thank you.
And I can't wait to see what your next career is going to be. I'm sure it'll be something interesting and wonderful. And our guest today has been Laura Princiotta, the CEO of SpArc Philly and the Arc of Philadelphia. And we'll see you next time, everybody.